sa ating pag-aaral. We are going now to the Word of God. So let us ready ourselves, our notes, and our hearts as we go on studying and preaching of the Word of God. Kaya magsalamin dahil medyo malabo na yung mata ko.
Yan.
Last time, hindi ako makakita talaga. So we have finished our studies in the book, in the last chapter 27, where we met Jacob and his father and mother, Isaac, and Rebekah, with his twin brother Esau. So we are here now. Our title for this preaching is Jacob and his family. Mainly, these are three spontaneous chapters that we will study today, which records Jacob's early stages in his life, from bachelor to familyhood. But before that, of course, we have to pray. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Father, indeed, it is an honor and a privilege to share your gospel, your word, to the elect of the Great Commission ministry, Lord. Indeed, you have put us in this place not only that we may be here enjoying the presence of each one of us, but of course, we are here gathered in your name that we may enjoy your word, that we may feast in your word, and that we may grow in the mature in the knowledge of your Lord. Indeed, Lord, it is a wonderful privilege for me. I am humbled by this privilege that I am here standing in the presence of your elect, your people, Lord, that I may preach your word. Guide me and bless this preaching, Lord, that it may convert our faith into actions in our daily lives, and that we will teach our children the truth about you and your promises in your holy words. We ask all of this in the name of your Son, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Isang question, one question for each one of us. We all dream of an ideal family, of course.
Yes.
Each one of us here are all married, I believe. And we have our own definition of an ideal family. To sum of it, if you googled up the meaning of an ideal family, of course you will get a typical definition. A good definition, but not biblical. It says that an ideal family is where all the members are happy. They understand, love, and help each other. Parents work to earn money for the family, and their children are responsible. Husband is the breadwinner of the family. The mother takes care of the welfare of the family, and the children are well-to-do. It sounds good, di ba? It's like, this is our ideal family. This is what we long for. But we neglect or we forget the most important, or what is the significance of God in the family. We set Him aside from what we have defined the family in the secular world. We put aside the one who designed architecture, this basic unit, who is God Himself. Ito yung definition ng family when we search the internet. You will see that there was no God in the definition of an ideal family. And that brings us to our discussion for my preaching for today. We will meet Jacob and his family. And we will see how God and His power, and with all His supremacy over sin and man, fulfilling His promise to His chosen people. So we have basically three emphases. 4 emphases for my preaching. The first emphasis takes us to chapter 28. Let's open our Bibles. I believe we have all our Bibles. Chapter 28, which is the first emphasis, is honoring our parents is honoring God. Let me repeat it again. When we honor our parents, we are honoring God. It is in the Ten Commandments, of course. But here we see when Jacob was sent by his father Esau to go to his mother's place in Haran, he followed his father. Let us read in chapter 28. Isaac summoned Jacob and blessed him, and commanded him, "Don't take a wife from the Canaanite women. Go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and marry one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother." So we see here the command of Isaac to his son Jacob, that he should marry and take his wife from the house of his lolo, his grandfather, the father of Rebekah, who is Bethuel. In the brother who Rebekah having his brother Laban at the same time. We knew from chapter 27 that Jacob was sent because of the cause of Esau. Because Esau planned to kill his brother after the death of his father Isaac. He's already planning. And to avoid that confrontation, that fight between the two, the solution is to send Jacob to find his wife in the land of Haran, where his father-in-law or his future father-in-law lives, Mr. Laban. In these chapters, we will see how God demonstrates His goodness to the family of Jacob. That in spite of their sinfulness, God is orchestrating His wonderful work in their lives. So Jacob left his home, and of course, for that we meet his brother, because Jacob has only one brother, and his name is Esau, who holds a serious grudge against him because of what he have done, taking the blessing of Esau, deceiving his father Isaac, that he may bless Jacob, and that he may bless Jacob which is rightfully for Esau. Isaac instructed Jacob to take a wife not from the Canaanites, but from his father, the house of Bethuel. And Jacob obeyed his father. He went and go. But of course, Esau noticed that Isaac blessed Jacob and sent him to Padan Aram to get a wife there. And when he blessed him, Isaac commanded Jacob, "Do not marry," again he repeat, "do not marry a Canaanite woman," and went to Padan Aram. Esau realized that his father Isaac disapproved the Canaanite women. So Esau understands that Canaanite women are displeasing to his parents. And in this, Esau again disobeyed the commandments of his parents. we see in chapter 27 what Canaanite women made the life of Rebekah. We read in verse 46, chapter 27, so Rebekah said to Isaac, I am sick of my life because of these Hittite women. If Jacob marries a Hittite woman like one of them, what good is my life? So nakita natin dito yung epekto ng pangangasawa o pag-aasawa sa mga taga-Canaanites. We see the consequences of Esau marrying a Canaanite woman. One of those are from the clan of Hittites. And it makes the life of Rebekah miserable. There's something that these parents see that is not good, or it is not in accordance to their faith. As we read in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 2 to 4, these are the reasons why Canaanite women are discouraged, or they are not encouraged to be married with the sons of Isaac, especially Jacob. We read here Deuteronomy chapter 7 verses 2 to 4. And when the Lord your God delivers them over to you, and you defeat them, you must completely destroy them. Make no treaty with them, and show no mercy. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons, because they will in turn your sons away from me, and worship other gods. These are pertaining to the people living in the Canaanites. We read that in verse 1. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess, and He drives out many nations before you, the Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. 7 nations. So these are the nations that composes Canaanites. This is the reason why Isaac commanded Jacob that he should go to his mother's brother in Haran, that he should marry one of her daughters. So Jacob obeyed his parents. But on the other hand, we see Esau disobeying completely what his parents instructed them. Esau already married Canaanites at that time, and still he added another wife. And it is through Ishmael. Esau went to Ishmael, verse 9, and married, in addition to other wives, Mahalat, daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son. So again, Esau, defying the commandments of his parents, dishonoring what they instructed him, and he followed his own desires, leading a breakage to their family. It leads to a bitter life for his parents. As we have said, honoring our parents is honoring God. And Esau didn't honor his parents. We can clearly see that. That he heard already that his parents despises the Canaanites because of their worshiping pagan gods. Does not deter them, does not deter Esau from taking another wife. And thus Jacob did what he is instructed by his parents. He left and went to Beersheba, and went toward Haran. So It is a long journey. It's not an easy journey for Jacob to go. Knowing that he's alone. It doesn't say that he has someone with him. It plainly says that Jacob went. So he's alone. And in his journey, he took some stones from the place and put it in his head and lay down in that place. So we see Jacob bringing almost nothing. And later we will see that Jacob didn't even bring more clothes. And most probably, his food is enough for the journey. We will see later on how long is this journey. And we see that even Jacob did not even bring a pillow with him so that he could sleep. He slept as a rock, as his pillow. It says here, and laid down in that place. Verse 12, and he dreamed a stairway was set on the ground, and it stopped reaching heaven. The angels were going up and down on it. And he saw Yahweh standing there beside him, saying, I am Yahweh, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your offspring the land that you are now sleeping on. This is the promise of God to Jacob. Your offspring will be the like of the dust of the earth, and you will spread out toward the east, the west, the north, and the south. And all the peoples on the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. So we see the same promise. The faithfulness of God in the life of Abraham, in the life of Isaac, now in the life of Jacob. There is no changes on what God has promised before. That through Abraham, his offspring will be blessed. This is what the promise of God through Abraham. And Jacob called the place Bethel, which means house of God. And from then, Jacob awoke in his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place. And I did not know it. He was afraid and said, what an awesome place this is. This is none other than the house of the Lord, to the gate of heaven. So we see here, Jacob responding to what God has said to him. He blessed the place, he honored God, and in his worship, he put a monument in remembrance of the place, a marker, and he poured oil on the top of it and named the place Bethel. So this is how Jacob responded to the word of God, to what God had promised. He held on to the truth of what God has promised. We see the character of Jacob being straightened up by God Himself. Our second emphasis takes us to the faithfulness of the Lord. Though Jacob was alone in his journey, he knows that God is with him. Because it is what God promised. Look, let's read in verse 15. Look, I am with you, and I will watch over you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you. So there is a promise to Jacob, the same promise to Abraham and his father Isaac. Jacob continued on his journey. Chapter 29. And resumed his journey and went to eastern country. He looked and saw a well in the field. There are flocks or sheep were lying beside it. And because the sheep were watered from this well, a large stone covered the opening of well. So there is a place near in this way to Haran where shepherds are gathering their water. And the mouth of the well is covered by a huge stone. And the stone was placed back on the well opening. Jacob asked the men of the well at the well, "My brothers, where are you from?" So there are already shepherds waiting to water their flock at the time. "We're from Haran," they answered. "And do you know Laban's grandson Nahor?" Jacob answered them. They said, "We know him." And he said, "Is he well?" Jacob asked. "Yes," they said. And her is his daughter Rachel coming with the sheep. So they see, so Jacob has the assurance that he is nearing the place of Laban, the place of his future father-in-law. And to prove that, Rachel was at his way to water the sheep. And then then Jacob said, "Look, it is broad daylight." So it is noon. Mainit. It is really hot at that time. And it's not time for the animals to be gathered. So Jacob knew that it is not yet time to water the animals or let them drink. But we see here Rachel is already on its way. But they replied, "We can't until all the flocks have been gathered and the stone is rolled from the well's opening. Then we will water the sheep." So there is a rules that they have to gather all the sheep so that they will open the well one time only. So that all will be fed or drink water from the well. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with his father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. So Rachel is a shepherdess, the opposite of a shepherd. This is her job. So we see here that Jacob met Rachel. And his gesture when he met Rachel was a very comforting gesture. He went up and rolled up the stone from the opening and watered his uncle Laban's sheep. So, ganun lang yung excitement ni Jacob. Although he doesn't really knew Rachel that much, it did not stop him from doing good. Of course, sino ba naman who in their happiness would not see a relative journeying from Canaanite to Haran is more than 600 kilometers away. The distance between Jacob and the place that he is going is 600 kilometers away, more or less. And to think he traveled on foot, because it does not say that he has a donkey or he has a camel. It's not just an easy task to do. As for me, if I travel more than 10 kilometers by foot, already I'll call a taxi. But here, Jacob, knowing that God was with him in his journey, did not deter from obeying his parents. He still pursued what his parents instructed him, knowing that God is with him. And in his happiness, he kissed her cousin and tell him about his father's wishes. As we read, when Laban, he told Rachel that he was her father's relative, Rebekah's son, her aunt. And she ran and told her father. And when Laban heard the news about his sister's son's Jacob, he ran to meet him, hugged him, and kissed him. So it's a customary for them to to hug and kiss their relatives, as with Laban did to Jacob. Then he took him to his house, and Jacob told him all about had happened. So we see here Jacob's obeying his parents, knowing that God is faithful to fulfill his promise, as we read, that God is with him. Now, he is in the land of what his father instructed him in Haran, to meet his father-in-law, future father-in-law. Which brings us to our third emphasis. Secured in the promises of God. Our first emphasis was honoring God. Honoring our parents is honoring God. And our second emphasis is the Lord's faithfulness to His promise. And our third brings us to chapter 29 again, in some part of it, Ephesians chapter 3, secured in the promise of God. So nakita natin dito yung kabutihan ng Diyos sa buhay ni Jacob. That though he traveled 100 kilometers away, but he did not give up. God was with him. He knows that God was with him. And in his happiness, when he saw her relative, future wife Rachel, he did what is customary to their family. Kissed her and told her the story about it. And this is what Laban did also to Jacob. When he met him, he kissed him and hugged him and welcomed him in his household. So this is how the reflection of how their family hospitality. So now we are in our emphasis, secured in the Lord. We will see now the agreement between Laban and Jacob. There will be an agreement between the two, Laban and Jacob. So at that time, Jacob explained why he was sent to the house of Laban. And that is to marry one of her daughters. After Jacob stayed with him with 1 month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are my relative and you should work for me for nothing? Tell me what wages should be." So there is already an agreement with him. That in order for Jacob to marry one of her daughters, Laban told him that you must work for it. Without wages, of course. Is the wage is his daughter's hand in marriage. That is the price of Jacob's hard work. The hand in marriage with her daughter. In the Philippines, we have this customary. I don't know about you, Brother Alex, in your country, but in the Philippines, we have these customs and traditions. That before hand in marriage come to take place, the husband-to-be has to serve the family. And the first stage is pagtatapat. You have to tell what is your intention to the woman that you want to marry. And telling it to her is in the presence of her parents. Showing your intentions are true and are good for her daughter. And the second stage is pamamanhikan. So you, in this place, this is a Tagalog term where you go to the woman's place, bringing your family, of course, your parents, together with their parents, arranging and preparing for the upcoming marriage. So this is the second stage. And the third stage is paninilbihan. And we see this in the life of Jacob. He did it. he served Laban for another 7 years. And in our Filipino culture, you have to serve also, which, I'm sorry, I didn't do my wife because I'm not already at all at that time. Usually I see this in the 70s movie. So you know what is my age now. So this is a typical family structure, a typical proposal stages in a family when you want to marry a Filipina. But now it's no longer effective. Nobody's doing this now. I'm sad to say, I'm sad to hear that, but it's true. The declination of this, should I say here, same with the traditions, are already a thing in the past. We see this in the movies that are 1970s to 1960s. Which is sad. Because now, we often rely on instant. We see here that Jacob worked hard for the hand in marriage of her future wife, Rachel. But nowadays, it is no longer a value. People don't give any more value on the stage of knowing the lady, the woman that you are willing to marry. Each one of us now prepare instant noodle, instant family. That when you see the woman, oh, I think this is the woman of my dreams, and I want to marry her. It's no longer a commitment. It is no longer a value that you should nurture, that you should work hard for. You should get to know each other. It's no longer the same situation. But here we see Jacob working hard for 7 years that he may serve Laban and get the hand of marriage of her daughter Rachel. And on that day, the agreement was made. And Jacob worked so hard that it seems like only a few days to him because of her love to Rachel. So that 7 years for Jacob is like only 1 week. It's the same with us. When we're going to our loved ones, to my wife, 1 year it seems like eternity for me. Of course, you know, when you're nearing, same like Pastor Rocky, 1 year is always, it seems like only 1 week, and we're already they're home. Pastor Rocky is already home, they're enjoying the presence of his family. And that is what we long for. And that is what Jacob waited. See, Jacob waited 7 years. He did not just wait it, but he worked for it. This is how persistent and how Jacob is willing to undergo in fulfillment of God's message to him, in fulfillment of the promise of God to him. And that time came. Jacob said to Laban, after 7 years, Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my time is completed." Jacob had already completed 7 years. And he demanded that he gave his wife Rachel to her. That evening, Laban took his daughter Leah and gave to Jacob. His father-in-law cheated him of his right. We see Laban wanting more for Jacob that he may serve him for another years. Knowing that Jacob, the true Jacob, he is being blessed by God. Why you should cheat a man who already worked hard these 7 years and did not honor the agreement between the two of them. That's when morning came, there was Leah. Jacob was surprised. I don't know, maybe Jacob was did not see Leah because maybe too much dark at that time. So he said to Laban, "What is this that you have done to me? Was it for Rachel that I worked for? Why do you deceive me?" So we see here, Laban did not live to enter agreement. He betrayed the trust of Jacob. Later on, in the stages of life of these chapters, we will see Jacob learn his lessons the hard way. So now we go to our we still are in our third emphasis, secured in the Lord. So Jacob at that time worked another 7 years. So after 7 years, Jacob working for the hand in marriage of Rachel, which turned out Leah was the one that she slept with. And now Laban again, Laban answered, "It is not the custom in our place to give the younger daughter in marriage before the firstborn." Sinangkalan ni Laban yung customary ng kanilang bayan. Laban make an alibi that it is not the custom for us to give a hand in marriage of our younger daughter than the first. Knowing that they have a previous agreement with this, knowing that Jacob trusted him. And he did not say it at the first time, di ba? He could have explained Jacob, in order for you to marry my daughter, my younger daughter, Rachel, you have to marry first Leah. But Laban, taking advantage of Jacob's love to her daughter Rachel, again, he demanded that he work another 7 years for her younger daughter Rachel. And Jacob did just that. He finished the week celebration. Of course, there is a celebration. And Laban gave his daughter Leah as his wife. And Laban gave his slave Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her slave. Jacob, verse 30, slept with Rachel. And also, indeed, he loved Rachel. Of course, Rachel was Jacob's true love at the time. And worked for Laban for another 7 years. So all in all, again, Jacob worked 14 years for 2 wives. And Laban benefited from the blessings of Jacob. Through him, Laban and his flocks are multiplied more. But we see here that the consequences of Jacob's compromising. He heed the commandment of his parents. Remember, in chapter 28, what Isaac told him. Isaac told him. Isaac told him in chapter 20, marry one of the daughters of Laban. So there was an instruction. But because of the deception of his father-in-law, Laban, he was forced to marry 2 of her daughters, making a serious problem in his family. So it becomes a dysfunctional family now. We have learned from the previous chapters what it did to the life of his grandfather. Who is his grandfather? Abraham. When he obeyed the orders of her wife Sarah to sleep with Hagar. And we see the consequences of these mistakes. We see the consequences of this compromising. That putting your plan ahead of God's plan and taking charge of the situation gives serious consequences in their later lives. And it's happening already now in the life of Jacob. Nangyayari na to. Yung pagbibigay ni Jacob ng pagbibigay niya ng permission para muli mapangasawa niya yung isa pang anak ni Laban, ay mas lalo pang nagbigay ng mga problema sa buhay niya sa buhay nila bilang mag-asawa. Kasi dalawa na asawa niya eh. Bringing us back to our reading, and then to Leah, Jacob's son was poor. So, knowing that Leah was hated by Jacob because she was not the really love of his life, it was Rachel. When God saw that Leah was unloved, so nandun yung favoritism. So ito yung sinasabi nating problema. Now there is a faction in the family of Jacob. There is already a division between Team Leah and Team Rachel. May dalawa lang yung team. Sa halip na isa lang yung family, united as one. Now, these are the consequences. There is now a competition between the two. And when God saw that Leah was unloved, He opened the womb of Leah, but Rachel was unable to conceive. We see here God showing mercy to Leah, showing His grace to Leah that she may bore Jacob's children. And she conceived 4 of them. His eldest was Reuben, the second was Simeon, and the third is Levi, and the fourth is Judah. So we see there. And when Rachel saw that he was unable to bring Jacob any children, so ito na yung problema. First was hatred, was unloving, partiality. Now the second problem rose in. Rachel envied Leah. So there is now envy. Ba't si Leah may anak, ako wala? Sabi ni Rachel told to Jacob, give me sons. We're on chapter 30 now. When Rachel saw that when she was not bearing Jacob's children, she envied his sister. So nagkaroon na ng inggitan. Nainggit na si Rachel sa kanyang kapatid na si Leah. Whereas before, they were united as one family. They love each other. But now there is already a competition between the two. And that Leah envied her sister. And now the blaming starts. Leah is now asking Jacob to give me sons, or I will die, she said to Jacob. So now Leah is putting Jacob as the one who gives children. But Jacob's theology is strong. He said, Jacob became angry with Rachel and said, am I in God's place who has withheld children from you? So nirebuke niya si Rachel. Sabi niya, I am not the one who is giving children or rewarding you or giving you in your womb to conceive children. It is God Himself. In our country, the Philippines, again, there is the machismo status of men. I don't know if you have that in your country, but in our country, in the Philippines, Brother Peter, if a Filipino guy marries a Filipino woman in some parts of our region, and the woman, his wife, bears more children, it is a sign of macho effect. That they're bearing children because they are macho. They're oozing with machismo. And this is the pride of some Filipinos. The more children, the more macho you attain, your stature. Which is not the case of Jacob. Clearly, he understands that children are a blessing from God. We have no control over conception. It is plainly a gift from God. Children are inheritance from God. As it says in Proverbs or Psalms. And Jacob became angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in God's place who has withheld children from you?" And then she said, eto na, one more issue. Taking recourse for another option. Rachel giving an option that she may bear children with her servant. She said to her, "Here is my slave, Bilhah. Go and sleep with her, that she will bear children from me." Ito yung slave ko, ito yung alipin ko. Sumipin ka sa kanya nang ako ay magkaroon ng asawa. Ito yung sinabi ni Rachel sa kanyang asawa. Looking for the security, for the affection of Jacob. That's why our third emphasis is security. They're looking for the security of their husband. Not looking for the security of God. Usually, men, all of us, put our security based on tangible objects. Nilalagay natin yung security natin sa mga bagay na nakikita natin, na papangawakan natin. What? Relationship, our wife, as it is said here, Leah's putting his security on the affection of Jacob, on wealth, position. These are securities that we tend to put our hopes on. And this is not so. Our security is none other than in Christ Himself. There's no other security that is assured than the hope in Christ. Security of everlasting life and abundance in life is only from Jesus Christ. Not from possession, not from our relationship, not that because we have children, not because that we have nice car, we have nice home. No. Those will pass by. Those will cease to exist. But the security in the redemption, in the assurance that through the offspring of Abraham, the Messiah will come. This is the security that Christians have. The promise of God. The forgiveness of our sins through Jesus Christ. This is the good news. But oftentimes, we put it aside. We rely on our abilities. We rely on our capacities. Mas bibigyan pa natin ng halaga yung mga bagay na nalilipas kaysa yung mga katotohanan na sinasabi ng Bible. That in spite of their selfish motivation, discontentment, rivalries, of course, nag-rise na yung envy, hatred in the family of Jacob. Causing discontentment, causing selfishness on their parts, hatred, envy, just shows how simple is man's heart. Pinapakita lang na we are sinful. It just shows that there is no contentment, no satisfaction that can supply our wanting, our needs. This reflects the true condition of man. Seeking and longing for security and satisfaction on things that are earthly. But to what? To no avail. Only to find out that this thirst is unquenchable. In the long run, this temporary security in the affection of Jacob on Leah's part, on Rachel's part, will pass away. But the truth is, God is the one that they should be seeking. We should be seeking that we may have eternal security in His Son, Christ Jesus. And more of that, we see in verse 14, chapter 30, Reuben went out during the wheat harvest and found some mandrakes. So ito na, nagkaroon na ng maraming anak si Jacob through her servants, through Leah, except for Rachel. Wala pa silang anak ni Rachel up to this point. In chapter 30, verse 14, there is still no signs of Leah's bearing or conceiving a child. Reuben went out during the wheat harvest and found some mandrakes in the field. So, kakatuwa, di ba? It is peculiar that the Bible says this part. What are mandrakes? Mandrakes are plants or herbs. In that time, mandrakes, they believe, has the ability to give fertility. And in Leah's desperation, in his state of sinfulness, he resulted in this plant or herbs that she may conceive a child. That in his condition, she told, when he brought them to his mother Leah, Rachel asked, "Please give me some of your son's mandrake." So sinabi ni Leah, "Bigyan mo ako ng herbs mo niyan, ng halaman mo na yan." Sabi niya kay Leah. But Leah replied to her, "Is it enough that you have taken my husband?" So, in natural reaction, Leah refuted Rachel. "Dinakaw mo na nga yung asawa ko. Gusto mo bang nakawin yung nakuha ng anak ko ng mga herbs, mga halaman? Ano ba naman?" You see now what's happening? Even in the smallest things, they're not willing to share anymore. It's a big deal with them now. Whereas when they were still unmarried, they will share. Will not give to your sister when you ask something of her. Of course she will give. But now, that relationship has been break. The bond between sisters are now rivalries and causing a rift in Jacob's family. And Rachel resulted. And well, Rachel said, "Well, you can sleep with him tonight in exchange for your mandrakes." So this is what they agreed with Rachel. With Rachel agreeing with Leah. Okay, kung ayaw mo kong bigyan ng mandrakes ng anak mo, sige, sa'yo na yung asawa mo for tonight. See how simple is the heart of man. But we see, rather than trusting God, relying on His promises, relying on His provisions, relying on His perfect timing, we rather put our trust in something else. And that is what Leah did. And when Jacob came into the field that evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, verse 14, chapter 16, "You must come with me, for I have hired you with my mandrakes." Wow, sabi ni Leah, "I have hired you." So, he told Jacob that tonight, your night is being paid because of the mandrakes that I gave to my sister Rachel. Rachel rather have the mandrakes than to have the company of her husband. And God listened to Leah. And again, Leah conceived and bore Jacob his fifth son. And his name was Issachar. And then again, Leah conceived and again again and bore Jacob his 6 sons. So there are already 6 sons of Leah. And his name is Zebulun. 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 So that is his 6th son, Zebulun. And again, God rewarded Leah, a daughter, which in some part of the Bible will play an important role. And her name is Dinah. At this point, Leah already conceived 6 sons and 1 daughter. Leah team is already composed of first 5 and Muse. Well, Rachel is still 0. That's why Rachel was provoked to resort into fertility herbs. But God, in His mercy and His goodness and His faithfulness, remembered Rachel. Verse 22. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened and opened her womb. So Rachel was praying at the time. She never gave up. Though she opted for some herbs, he nagged Jacob that should give me son. But Leah still prayed, knowing from Jacob's rebuking of her that it is only through God that children are given. Children are being a blessing from God. He listened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son. Finally, score 1 for our team Leah. And God has taken away. Leah is really, she knows that God is the one that gave her the son. And she said, God has taken away my shame. And she named him Joseph. May the Lord add another son to me. Praise God. For He heard the prayer of Leah. Later on, we will know who is Jacob. And later on these chapters, we will see Leah will bore his 2nd son, who is Benjamin, on which Paul is in his lineage. So which brings us to my final emphasis for this afternoon. Prosperity is a blessing from God. Chapter 30, little bit of chapter 30. So we see here 3 emphases in the lives of Jacob. We emphasize that honoring our parents is honoring God, and the Lord is faithful in fulfilling His promises. And third, in knowing that God will fulfill His promises. We are secured in the Lord. Jacob is secured in the promises of God. And our fourth emphasis is prosperity is a blessing from God. Jacob knew that his time is already ended at that place. And God told him that He will bring him back to his father's ancestral land in Canaan. Chapter 30, verse 26. Give me, 25. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban. So it is already, now Jacob is standing his ground. He no longer wants to work for Laban for mere wages. Of course, how can he feed now his family with mere wages? Thinking that he already have 12 children, 12 sons and 1 daughter, not to mention 4 wives. And there are, of course, there are a growing family. And he continues on working on merely wages that Laban gave him. He will not leave this place. So again, Jacob resulted for another agreement with his father-in-law Laban. Jacob said to himself, "You know that for what I have done for you and your herds, for you have better little before I came." We see that when Rachel came and watered the sheep of his father, which is not that much. They was taking care of the sheep at the time. But now, at the time of Jacob, Jacob knew that God has blessed him. And through that blessing, his father-in-law Laban take advantage of. That's why Jacob said, "For you have very little before I came, but now your wealth has increased, and the Lord has blessed you because of me." You see, the blessing of God to the ungodly through the lives of the godly. And now, when I will also, and the Lord has blessed you because of me, and now, when will I also do something for my own family? Dito na yung gustong gawin na ni Jacob. He wants to part ways with his father-in-law, knowing that his wages will not be enough, and knowing that God has plans for his return to his family. Laban asked, "What should I give you?" And Jacob said, "You don't need to give me anything. If you do this one thing for me, I will continue on to serve and keep your flock. Let me go through your sheep today and remove every sheep that is speckled and spotted, every dark-colored sheep among the lambs, and the spotted and the speckled among the female goats. Such will be my wages." So meron na uli silang bagong agreement. Ayaw na ni Jacob ng mere wages. Na pwede bayaran ng pera na yun. Malaki na ang pamilya ko, hindi na kayang pakainin ng pasahod mo sa akin. And knowing that God has promised him that he will go back to his father's ancestral land. So Laban proposal was countered by Jacob, knowing that God has blessed him with more than he expected. But of course, Laban again, seeing the deceitfulness of his heart, take again another advantage of Jacob. Kakausap lang nila, may ginawa na namang bago itong si father-in-law, si Mr. Laban. What did he do? That day, Laban removed the streaked and spotted male goats and all the speckled and spotted female goats, everyone that has any white on it, and every dark-colored ones among the lambs, and he placed his sons in charge of them. He put in a 3-day journey between him and Jacob. Ganito this is how deceitful Laban. This is how, again, Laban, he cheated already Jacob of his wives, of his rightful wife, Rachel. So naulit-uli yung problema. Knowing that Jacob, that his flocks have multiplied because of Jacob, because of God's blessing to Jacob. Laban does not want Jacob to go from his place. He wants him to continue on benefiting from the blessing of Jacob. Ito yung gusto ni Laban. Gusto niyang out of self-vested interest. Gusto niyang, dito ka lang, Jacob. Hindi niya lang masabi, dito ka na, Jacob. Dahil pinagpapala ka ng Diyos mo, may pang dito ka na lang manirahan. Na sa ganun, ang aking alagaan, na mas lalo pang pagpalain ng Diyos. Pero no, sabi ni Jacob, that is not the plan of God for him. And that again, Laban resulted in cheating. He removed all the possibility that Jacob might get his wages, rightful wages. He removed all the speckled and He removed all the streaked and spotted male goats that they cannot interbreed. Para hindi magkaroon ng posibilidad na makuha ni Jacob yung mga spotted, yung mga sa aso ay tagpi. Yung mga may bahid ba, hindi perfect na white, hindi perfect na black. At the same time, Laban, at the same day, instructed his servants, go and remove all the streaked and the spotted male goats and female goats or female sheep that they cannot breed among those who are already black and white. And reducing Jacob's opportunity to get his wages. So Laban is a very crafty father-in-law. So, kung ganito yung father-in-law ko, ay, sorry ko na miss ko. No, hindi yun. That's wrong. Jacob stood his ground. He knows that God Himself is blessing him. God promised that wherever he may be, He is blessing him. Ganun kabuti yung Diyos na meron tayo. That is how God is good and merciful to all of us. And in our simple ways, simple nature, in our simple state, it does not deter God from loving us. Sending His only begotten Son, that we may have eternal life through Him. This is how the magnificent is the love of God shown in Jesus Christ. Nandiyan po ba kayo?
Yeah.
Nami-miss ko lang yun. So this is how good is God in the life of Jacob. And to think that He put this situation 3 days away from Jacob's place. Ganito siya ka-greedy. Isang araw, madali lang punta ni Jacob to. Nalakad niya ngayon 640 kilometers away from lugar na to. Yung pa yung 1 day away. Parang daling niya sa medyo malayo. Sabi nila, doon sa mga 3 days. Parang hindi naman makita ni Jacob. So how deceitful is the father-in-law? And this is the conditions of our heart. When God have not changed us. In the little things we cheat, in the little things we compromise, in the little things we tolerated sin in our hearts. Hindi naman alam to ni Lord, hindi niya naman nakita to. Ako lang naman nakakita. We're belittling the omniscience, the omnipotence, the greatness of God. As a matter of fact, it always strikes me when in the events of our lives, my lives, when I love sin more than God. When we love more than God. Makikita natin ang ating sarili habang tayo nagkakasala, habang tayo natutuwa din sa kasalanan ating ginagawa. Na mas minamahal natin ang ating mga kasalanan kesa sa Panginoon Diyos. This is our natural condition. Unless God change our hearts of stone into a heart of flesh, we have nothing but our simple ways. So we see here Jacob using his experience in breeding sheep and goats, using sticks which will agitate the sheep will breed again more often than they should. Of course, these are all in accordance to God's plan. It is the blessing from God. Even though Jacob worked so hard, and it is not blessed by God, it is for his own sake only, not for his own good. So we see here that in the next verses, now Jacob's herd, in chapter 30 again, we're still there, verse 43, And the man becomes very rich. This is now Jacob. And he had many flocks, males and female slaves, and camels and donkey. So we see here the prosperity of Jacob because of God's blessing to him. Because of God is a rewarder of those who obey His will. In spite of his dysfunctional family, it does not hinder God from blessing and fulfilling His promise to Jacob. Hindi nakaugat ang pangako ng Diyos sa katauhan ni Abraham, ni Isaac, o ni Jacob. God's promise is rooted in His character of being God Himself, the God of the Bible. In His attributes, in His faithfulness. If you are to search God's faithfulness, His steadfast love, in your own Bible, if you have, you will see from Genesis chapter 24 to Micah, the same two words conjuncted together. The steadfast love of the Lord. This is the God that we are serving. This is the God of Jacob. This is the God that put us in this place that we may see the lives of Jacob transformed to what God intended it to be, a blessing to other nations. Jacob knew that God is with him wherever he may be, whatever works he may have. It is the Lord, it is in the Lord his confidence. God blessed Jacob that he may pursue God's intended purpose for him, to give the land of the Canaanites in fulfillment to the promise of God to Abraham. We're already on our stage. So we see the prosperity of Jacob, but not merely based on his hard work. It is based on the promises of God. It is based on the provision of God. We see that a life of obedience to God's will is a rewarding life for the Christians. All of us were able to picture ourselves and relate in the life of Jacob. Nakita natin at nasalamin natin ang ating pamumuhay sa buhay ni Jacob at ang kanyang pamilya. Though they are a dysfunctional family, it does not hinder God from fulfilling His promise. Hindi ito nahadlangan ang pagiging polygamy ni Jacob, pagiging magkaroon siya ng 4 na asawa at maraming anak sa 4 niyang asawa, ay hindi nahadlangan ang katuparan ng pangako ng Diyos sa kanyang grandfather Abraham. In the later part, we will know Christ is the promised Messiah. That in His fulfillment of His promise, 4,000 years after the death of Abraham, coming to the age of the New Testament, we see God's fulfilling His promise. We see the fulfillment of His promise. God in all circumstances in life, at the same time teaching and rebuking one of us of the consequences of hatred, deception, unfaithfulness, envy, and pride. Despite of Jacob's fallen state, we of course, our nature, we see God orchestrating His great masterpiece of preserving a family for His own, and through them, the fulfillment of His covenant with Abraham, that nations will be blessed because of the coming Messiah Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, starting from a family. Remember, starting from Abraham to a nation, which is Israel. His sovereign will above all else, sovereign will against sin and man, is a testimony of His steadfast love that never ceases. His mercies are new every morning. This is the song, favorite song of our brother John. Great is thy faithfulness, O Lord. Questions for us to ponder. Do my wife and children see Christ in me as a father? Do they see the doctrines of the Bible manifested in my life? Let's ask ourselves. Nakikita ba ng ating anak, ng ating asawa, ang ating mga na ang sentro ng ating buhay ay ang Panginoong Hesus? At ang mga katuruan na ating naririnig every Friday, every napapag-aralan natin ay nagiging makatotohanan ba sa ating buhay Kristyano? In our relationship with them. Tayo lang makakasagot nun. We are the ones who will answer this question. And is Jesus is the center of our family? Is Jesus the center of our family? And if our answer is yes, kung si Kristo ang sentro ng ating family, if Christ is the center of our family, then what do others say about us? What do my neighbors say? What do my office mates say about me? If Christ is the center of my family. There's a passage in Matthew chapter 5 verse 16. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. People will testify. Indeed, he is a Christian. And for those who have not yet surrendered their lives in Christ Jesus, which I believe we have already surrendered all our lives in Jesus, this is the time that the Lord has made, hearing the proclamation of His message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. There is freedom, security, and hope in Christ alone. A Christ-centered family is indeed a blessing from God. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Father in heaven, Almighty God, indeed we witness your goodness, your faithfulness in the lives of Jacob and his family. Despite of their dysfunctional stature, Lord, despite of their dysfunctional status, despite of their sins, it does not hinder you from fulfilling your promise to your servant Abraham. Indeed, Lord, in our lives, we can relate most of them. We too compromise. We sometimes derail ourselves in obeying your words. But Lord, thank you for your grace. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ. We are now free to obey your will and to obey your commandments in love and reverence of you. Lord, may these words that we have heard today bless us. And may this passage in the Bible will always serve as a reminder for us to teach our wives, our children, the true essence of faith in Jesus Christ. And that we should love our wives just as Christ loved the church, and wives to submit to their husbands, and children to honor their parents. This we pray in the name of your Son, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.